we got Dr. Braxton Hunter, pretty talented and well-known apologist. Shared the stage with the William Lane Craigs, to the Mike Laconas, to all those guys. Jonathan Pritchett, Dr. Pritchett is here, and he is a New Testament guy and does a lot of stuff, a lot of podcasts, a lot of debates, so on and so forth.
So is the guy on the left Jerry Lewis, and Braxton's trying to be Dean Martin here? The straight guy and the funny guy?
They gave us nothing but tradition and no argument. All they did was get on this stage, yell real loud, and set a straw man on fire.
Okay, now I was not impressed.
I need a dumb guy. Do I have any volunteers who wants to be my sidekick, the dumb guy?
Respectfully, that sounds like a little bit of a dodge.
I'm claiming victory.
So where I come from, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of Trinity Radio. I'm Jonathan Pritchett, and along with me, as usual, is
Braxton Hunter.
And today we are going to talk about, well, two different things. We're going to start off talking about what we have learned by doing response videos and addressing other videos on YouTube. And we are going to talk about the good things about presuppositional apologetics. Stick with us.
And welcome back to the main show. And today we are going to tackle a couple of different issues and see if we... here's the problem, Jonathan. It seems like almost every time we ever try to do more than one topic in a given show, that show ends up being 5 hours long. So We're going to try not to do that today. We are hearing you, those of you that say you want shorter episodes. Although, in case you didn't know,
there are people who do want the longer ones, though.
And there is this little button in the bottom left-hand corner of the video screen, and available also now on podcast players, that looks like the number 11. And that is a magical button that if you press it, it freezes time. So you can always just pause the video and come back to it later. But anyway, no, all joking aside, we're trying to make shorter videos. And monologues at the beginning of episodes, just like this one, are the reason that will probably never happen. Right. But we are beginning by talking about
lessons we've learned from our interactions with atheists, with skeptics and stuff.
Primarily atheists and skeptics.
On YouTube, but a little bit of dealing with people of other world religions with the Weimar series, and and the interesting things have come out from what I've noticed, especially with the Weimar series. When you critique somebody's video, they normally we'll put the link to the original video. When they respond, they'll put a link to our video. Not everyone plays by those rules. But those who do, I think that's fair. And what I've learned is a lot of people are like, hey, thanks for the engagement. And then others are like, how dare you? And,
Well, so here's the thing. If you clicked on this video because you thought it was another of our response videos, I'm sorry, you are a victim of clickbait, and I'm not above it. But let me give you a little clue here. In the future, whenever you want to see an actual response video, it's typically those videos that have a picture of one of us and another person on the thumbnail for the video. So sorry, but don't be afraid to watch our response videos in the future because you think it's a trick. This is a one-off example of trickery.
No, we've responded to YouTube comments before.
That's true.
We're not responding specifically to YouTube comments here, but I mean, so there are response videos both in the studio, and I guess the difference is there's a big head in the background and then a little head in the corner.
That's right. Okay, so first thing that I've learned from doing these response videos to skeptics and atheists is that I had been doing it wrong in the past. So for several years now, Dr. Leighton Flowers, personal friend of ours, has always gone line by line, and he's done the green screen where you see the video in the background and he's in front of it, and he's going line by line, pausing and responding to what people say. And I always personally thought, though I've listened to a lot of those from Leighton and I love Leighton, I've always thought those were kind of treacherous to get through,
or tedious.
Tedious is a good word, because it's like I don't. Gosh, can you just focus on the main point of what the person is saying and respond to that? But there are other reasons we'll get to in a few minutes why I don't think that works. What I've found is, as with many things, Leighton Flowers was right all along, and that's the best way to do it. What we had done in the past, you mentioned the Weimar episodes, Y-I-M-A, Weimar, and that is a series we did last year about this time that was focused on a variety of different major world religions as well as atheists and skeptics, where we would take the video, we didn't even play the video or play audio clips from the video.
Yes, we just made down what we thought were the salient, most relevant points to their case of why they're whatever they are.
Yeah, it was called Wyma because the video would be why I'm a Hindu, why I'm a Mormon, whatever.
Or a Scientologist.
Or an atheist or whatever. And so we would write it down ahead of time, and then we would go through it, not playing the video or the audio, but we would link the video in the show notes, as you say. And I thought that would work really well. And for a few episodes, it really, really did. The Catholic episodes specifically got a lot of...
That was from this season, yeah.
view. Well, no, but we did a Catholic episode last year.
That's right.
And it got a lot of... That's a fun one, too, because we go through the thing about saints and that if it's really a saint, it shouldn't decay and all these kind of weird things. So we went through that stuff, and that was really fun. And as fun as those episodes are, and frankly, those are my favorite episodes of Trinity Radio.
Yeah, the Jehovah's Witness did big numbers, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one blew up, and I think the Mormon one did pretty good.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite ones were like when we were talking about the Wiccans and stuff like that, and the weird cults, and that was like the most fun one. And
the episode on weird cults is pretty fun,
but no, it didn't get a lot of views.
Right, that's so odd to me.
Yeah.
But so what I've realized is for whatever reason, people like it when you put the video in there and you go through
But
it.
if you don't agree with us, you can always put that in the comment section that we allow to be open for feedback.
Yeah.
But about comments.
In fact, we've been praised by internet atheists for leaving the comments open.
Yeah.
So anyway, another thing I want to say about this, the line by line going through it, because a new friend of mine, Cameron Bertuzzi, has recently said he doesn't personally prefer to do that. He likes to get the main idea and then focus on that. But he told me privately, and I think the way you do it for you, it works. And what I found is, just like there are people in the Christian world who love the type of expository preaching, because not all expository preaching is this way, the type of expository preaching which is line by line through one little pericope or one little section of text, just without a whole lot of illustration, just responding as you go. There are people that appreciate that. Guess what? Many people appreciate that in this, they like expository atheism, where you go through and respond to the atheist line by line.
Expository apologetic. Well, no, wait, that's Vodi Bachman's book title.
Right. This is expository YouTube, I
Criticism.
guess. But yeah. But they like that. And I've even gotten a lot of good, and this brings us to, this will segue nicely into the second point I want to make about this. But what I heard from a lot of atheists even, is that they enjoy watching those response videos because even though they disagree with much of what I'm saying, they like the fact that someone is doing that and is, even though they don't agree, they like the fact that you're taking it apart systematically and they can see why you respond. I mean, it would be nice from our perspective, and there are a few atheists that do this, to do that with our videos so you could hear very specifically what it is that they object to instead of these just kind of big overarching, well, that's dumb, or I disagree because the cosmological argument's been debunked, or whatever. No. You get to go line by line and tell me what you reject specifically, because then we can have a real dialogue. And there have been a number of atheists that have been like, I really like your videos because it helps me see it all in real good detail.
Right.
And so the second thing I want to say now is that there are actually, and this is unfortunately, and I don't say this to be pejorative, but there are a fair number, and it's not a large number of the people that are commenting. Now I realize there are a lot more people viewing these videos than there are people commenting. I mean, the analytics tell us that. Yeah. So there may be a lot of people out there that are just not the type that would comment on YouTube. But what we get from this is mostly negative or kind of chest thumping type stuff, and we've said that before. But we do get a fair amount of actually interested, fair-minded, as far as I can tell, atheists who are open to hearing what you have to say. And that has been really helpful. In fact, at this point, and I've said this before and I'm going to say it now, if you are an atheist who comments on our channel, first of all, thank you for the attention. I appreciate that you care enough to watch, listen, and comment. But if you include profanity, if you lead with an insult, or you have much of an insult, that is, that way, we may delete your comments. I don't even mind if you insult, but like we said a moment ago, as long as that's not all you do, but you do provide something substantive. But if I get the impression that this is just a drive-by atheist bumper sticker type thing, yeah, I'm probably not going to.
Yeah, and what we've talked about before, displaying the fact that you did not watch or pay close attention to the video, because you've even gone so far as to put out tests for the commenters. if they say X, Y, and Z, listen to me right now in the video, it means that they did not watch this video if they say it in the comments, because they would have known I just addressed X, Y, and Z.
And at the very least, even if they disregard or don't like what I said about X, Y, and Z, if they realize I'm putting them through a test, they will say something in the comments, and some people do, like, yeah, I don't care about your silly test. Here's what I think. Okay, well, then they did watch the video.
Right.
But some people that make no mention of that and say it as though, well, I bet you've never heard this, or you can't answer this, and we referenced that in the video and said that it was a test to see if you'll take note of it. Yeah, okay, you're not paying attention. So there are people like that. But the thing I want to highlight here is I have learned there are a fair number, and really not as many as I thought there would be, but there are a fair number of people who are fair-minded and do want to actually dialogue with you. And let me just tell you, it refreshes me. It gives me hope for humanity when someone who disagrees with me on some point says, you know what, I don't agree with you. I'm not where you're at, but you know what, I really like the way you do this. I like what you said here, made me think. You know, if you say something like that, I've said that sort of thing to skeptics before.
Yeah.
You know,
if you say something nice, of course you're going to keep the comment.
right? We're going to leave it up.
I just heard you say.
And well, no, seriously, because that's an important point. I have pinned comments. I think currently on the Matt Dillahunty debate, the comment that is pinned is an atheist saying that they disagree with me, but that, and here's why, and they gave reasons why I'm wrong. But they said, but I really thought that you did a good job, and I appreciated you both handled yourselves well. You know, that I pinned that. Well, why would you pin an atheist comment? Because I'm hoping we can improve the level of discourse on YouTube. There are places for that, and again, I leave those comments, provided they don't involve profanity. I leave those comments as long as they also include substance,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, nobody's going to sit here and look at this box in front of me and say, "Yeah, I mean, but mockery and rhetoric."
Well, right. I mean, but
it's personal attacks. I mean, who are y'all?
So the next point I want to make is that what I've learned from looking at atheist and skeptic content on the internet as I've been responding to things is that often the argumentation is somewhat, and this is not always the case. Okay, listen, if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. But often, and this is probably also true with some Christians, okay? I'm trying to caveat this so I'm being as fair as possible. But I think more often with the atheist YouTubers that I've been reviewing per capita, I think more often what it is argumentation is somewhat secondary, even if it doesn't feel that way. I'll give you a great example. I'm currently working on doing a video. Everybody keeps telling me, you need to respond to this guy, Genetically Modified Skeptic. That's his name. And so I've been looking at his videos, and he has a playlist, atheist stuff. He's got another playlist that's all about essential oils and that whole controversy, and he's got other playlists on other things.
Whoa. There's a controversy about essential oils.
Yeah.
Maybe tell me later.
Yeah, go watch Genetically Modified Skeptic, because guess what? We may agree with him on all that stuff. I don't know.
Is this like controversy?
No, it's more than that. But okay. That's I'm not a specialist in that.
This
so
is
I
how
can't speak to
I'm not. This is how out of touch I am. I don't know about this stuff.
Yeah, well, apparently I'm not either. I'm just saying, go check it out. But the point is, he has playlists related to other things. But he has a playlist about atheism, and there's 17 videos currently in that playlist. And I listened to all of them because this is the guy that everybody told me I need to respond to. Now, let me say this. Super nice guy. I can tell. He's really genuine. I don't doubt that he means what he's saying. I don't think he's trying to be deceptive. I think he believes what he's saying.
Right.
And I found myself enjoying listening to him just because he seemed like a likable guy. And I can kind of resonate with some of what he says when he talks about how family members view certain things that you do and say, I get all that. Okay, that's nice guy. But as I listen through, this is the guy that I'm supposed to respond to. And most of the videos don't touch directly on the theistic arguments, the resurrection, or with other religions, their specific claims. There are 3 or 4 that do, and even there, he brings in someone like Cosmic Skeptic or Rationality Rules to do the heavy lifting with the theistic arguments and stuff.
I'm trying to sit like you.
I'm not saying that he's not capable of doing that. I'm just saying that that's what I get. It's for the most part, an attempt to instill a little bit of doubt based on comparisons with things like essential oils, or it's talking about whether religion in America and population statistics and things like this, what it's like to come out to your family as an atheist, these kind of things. And so this is a good example of someone who maybe it doesn't feel like it listening to the videos, but it's mostly just rhetorical type of stuff that's not directly related to the evidential stuff that we want to talk about, that we want to respond to, that should move people, the actual evidence. So what I found is that argumentation often comes second, and what we have most of the time is it's a mile wide and an inch deep, even though it doesn't posture itself that way. It postures itself as, no, we believe in science, and we are... and save your comments about science because that's another point here. But we believe in science.
Was that to me?
And yes, and we don't believe in things like Santa Claus and my imaginary friend and all those kind of things. They can posture themselves that way. But when I look at most of the people who are Christian apologists, advocates for Christianity, you might say, mostly what I get is dealing with the evidence. So anyway, there you go.
Either I've grown even taller in my early 40s, or your posture has gotten worse the closer you get to 40, or the building has shifted yet again because I look taller than you sitting down, more so than normal.
Guess what? I'll say to you what someone could criticize me for saying to someone else recently. Nobody cares. Right. All right, let's move on. All right, so scientific. No. Here's the other thing. This is one of the important things. If you're a person who's going to make video responses, and this may go the other way too to Christians, I don't know. I can only speak for my dealing with making these kind of videos. You need to understand that if you don't address everything every time, someone is going to harp on the one thing you didn't talk about.
Oh, yeah. You know what? This happens in theology, too. N.T. Wright makes this same comment in numerous interviews, like that if you don't say everything that you believe it, every time you say it, somebody's going to say you don't believe it or you don't know about it.
Right.
You know?
That's why Nick Peters, our friend who's an apologist, he always says that he affirms the virgin birth because there's this thing that Paul didn't believe in the virgin birth.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, wait a minute. You could listen to 3 months of a pastor preaching sermons about Christianity and conclude that he doesn't believe in the virgin birth because maybe he doesn't talk about the virgin birth in that 3-month period, right?
Yeah.
But of course, if he's an evangelical pastor, he probably affirms the virgin birth,
right?
Right? So he always begins and ends every comment with, and by the way, I affirm the virgin birth, which I do affirm.
I ate a wonderful combo meal at McDonald's, and by the way, I affirm the virgin
birth.
Yeah, right. It's just everything at random. But yeah.
And then when you say it, if you say to Nick Peters, go try it. If you say, Nick Peters, I affirm the virgin birth, he'll say, I'm so pleased that you affirm the virgin birth, which I also do affirm.
Right. I love Nick.
So recently I had a great debate with Dan Barker.
Yeah, go check that out.
So all right. So let me give you an example of that.
So I'll give you an example from church, okay?
Okay,
so we need to start doing evangelism because we really need to grow the church. There's always a deacon saying, no, Jesus will build his church, and the Holy Spirit grows the church.
Right.
We don't do any, and you're just, really?
Well, amen. Well,
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's like saying to Paul, Jesus saves some Paul. You don't save some Paul.
Right.
You know?
Why would you need to say that about Paul?
Right. I mean, yeah.
No, I mean, because Paul says something like that.
Right. Paul says, so that I become all things to all men so that I might save some.
Yeah.
Right. No, Paul, you don't say. I mean, there's always that kind of thing. Just because he didn't say it, with the most pedantic theological specificity possible.
So it happens in theology. It also happens in this arena. And so here's an example. So I made a response to Matt Dillahunty after the debate. I made a response to Godless Engineer and Pine Creek. If I recall, and I know at least in the Godless Engineer and Pine Creek video, in both of those, I pointed out that God does not, so you have this infinite regression problem if you say that the universe has always existed. Mm-hmm. Because if a series of temporal moments or causal events literally stretches infinitely into the past, you would never arrive at today for various reasons. Okay. One of the things that I hear in response to that is, but you could say the same thing about God. In fact, in my debate with Matt Dillahunty, he said that, which is, your God, how can your God be past infinite? And as I said to him in the debate, and as I've said in videos since, God doesn't run into that problem because we believe God exists timelessly, and if God exists timelessly, then he doesn't require beginning or ending because the only things that require beginnings or endings, which are temporal statements, are things in time. So if God exists timelessly, doesn't have beginning or ending.
on A
Sans
theory.
creation.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, our open theist friends will also object in the similar way to the atheists, but differently. They'll just say, no, God, which I don't understand about how they get around that. They say God is from everlasting to everlasting. He's never been, it makes no sense to say timeless. He has just never not been in existence throughout all of time.
Right, and what I said in response to that when I was talking about in the response video to Jacqueline Glenn, famous atheist YouTuber, is I said, you're right, the Bible is completely right there. God has existed from everlasting to everlasting. Those are that's temporal language. Everlasting is temporal. So as far back as time goes, God has existed. As far forward as time will go, God will exist. There never has been or ever will be a temporal moment that God has not, does not,
Right,
will
but I'm
not
saying-
exist.
I'm saying-
but he also exists timelessly.
Yeah, that's the point that not all, probably not all, but some open theists object to. They
And
say-
you need to make a response video by yourself to the open theists in which you deal with their concerns,
Yeah.
because that's a relevant thing. But the point is, I've said that God doesn't require a beginning because God, sans the physical universe, exists timelessly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've said that. In the video with Cosmic Skeptic, Rationality Rules, and Matt Dillahunty, I felt like I've said this so many times my jaw is going to fall off. I'm not going to say it here. I've made it clear.
Right.
What's the one thing that I heard more than
In the
anything
comments.
else was that. Yeah. So it's almost like you've got to say everything you think about a thing every single time. So whereas
think
I
about a
hoped
thing.
that we could build up, and it's fair because not everybody's required to listen to all my videos.
Right.
But it just goes to show that if you're a person who makes response videos, understand that that's going to be something that you're going to run into, is saying everything you believe about everything every time you speak.
Yeah, and interestingly, when you make a response video to one, it is not like that is the only video that you've ever seen of that person. You might click on something else as well, at least to try to be familiar with what can I get a general idea of this person's overall deal.
Yeah.
You know, and so typically, if you watch 2 or 3 of a video dealing with the same type of subject, which you have what, 3 or 4 of these things now,
4 or 5. Yeah.
you're going to get everything that person thinks because some of the same issues are going to come up.
Yeah.
Because and like Christians, yeah, I mean, atheists are right in a sense that, oh brother, here comes that apologist with trotting out that long debunk kalam argument again. You know, but they're to a degree they're kind of right because many apologists keep using the same type of argumentation that goes all the way back
because
to
they haven't been beaten yet. And here's the thing. That's another thing that sometimes you get a lot of hand waving when it comes to the theistic arguments or the resurrection case. So, well, you've heard all this before. Okay. So what? I'm not bothered if someone brings the problem of evil a dozen times. You know why? Not because I'm going to wave off of it and say, oh, that's an old argument. No, it's because I know exactly how to respond to that argument pretty well. And so if someone brings it, oh, great, I know right where to go with this. And so I'm going to respond. Do us the same courtesy. If you think it's been debunked, debunk it for us.
Shouldn't be hard.
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I have is I have found that, and I kind of suspected this, but it's been confirmed. Scientific evidence is what they value most, and in some cases, it's the only thing that counts to them.
Right.
And of course, that is either a hard scientism or a soft scientism. Scientism being, at least hard scientism being the view that we should only claim to know things based on
Information gathered through scientific methods. Yeah.
Of course, that claim cannot be demonstrated scientifically.
Right,
So
and
it's self-referentially incoherent. Now, you could get away with a soft scientism and say, well, most things. And then if you ask them about that statement, that self-referential incoherence, they'll say, no, because that's one of the things I'm claiming to know without scientific demonstration. But
then you can ask them by what method are you using to do that, and how do you know if it can lead to correct conclusions on this issue? Why is it not leading to correct conclusions on things that I say it does when you still can't even beat my argument using the same method that you think that you've arrived at something proper? So you can still continue the conversation and debate and still expose their thinking as being a little bit arbitrary on that point, and typically that's more of a tactic to avoid the absolute claim, but at the end of the day, they're probably a hard scientist scientism anyway. Even the relativist, J.P. Moreland points out to any moral relativist, you find their nitpicky issue, whether it's climate change or
veganism,
or whatever, you'll expose a closet objectivist every time.
Yeah, and
same thing with a
teachable moment here.
Yeah.
You could categorize skeptics, and people keep saying, well, you don't know the difference between a skeptic and an atheist. No, I do. I'm talking about skeptics right now. And skeptics they are categorized between global skeptics and local skeptics. Global skeptics are skeptics about everything. Now, that's an easy person to respond to, because no matter what they say, you can say, how do you know that? How do you know that? And eventually, if they claim something at the base, you say, are you certain of that? And they'll say no. And then you can say to that person, okay, well, my recommendation would be to go home and sit on your couch and think about your epistemology for a while and figure out what you can know, because number one, then you won't be as much of a global skeptic anymore. And then number two, at least you'll know something. So, but if you're a local skeptic, the problem with local skepticism is, since it does allow for you to bring in things that the local skeptic does believe you can know, local skepticism is hard to stay contained. The skepticism spills out into other things as they try to defend themselves. So the local skeptic often ends up becoming something like a global skeptic in trying to defend their position.
Or they're arbitrary or have a moving target on what they decide they're going to be locally skeptical about.
Yeah. So anyway, I've discovered that they will not allow anything as evidence in many cases. And even the ones that do, it's not much. But as I said in the video to Jacqueline Glenn, the response to her, the thing about it is, with science, the claim is there are actually other methodologies that you can use to get to reliable knowledge. And if you limit it to science, you are prima facie cutting off certain areas of inquiry. And I just don't think I think we should be free thinkers. So if you're going to be a free thinker, then you don't just dogmatically presume your favorite device for taking in knowledge. You also allow for personal experience, philosophy, history, and perhaps other things.
Right. And about that, it's also unlivable when you're arbitrary, because you start saying, okay, are you going to go do scans and stuff to people's brains to determine if certain things light up to know that your mom really loves you, or that,
right.
Or do certain things have to light up when you see a chocolate sundae to know that you really like that chocolate sundae?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go ridiculous when you think that, but no, you do have knowledge of yourself, self-knowledge, which is knowledge that you don't gain from science. And if you insist that, and no, we're not talking about Cartesian certainty of knowledge. We're talking about just a folk reason way of knowing, which is fine for most things.
Right.
You're not as skeptical as you think you are.
And what they'll say to that is, well, that's the extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, because if you tell me you own a dog, well, then I don't really doubt that, because that's a mundane claim. But if you tell me you have an invisible dragon living in your garage that leaves no trace, I'm not necessarily going to believe that. And if you want to hear more on that, you can go check out the recent video with Tim McGrew and Cameron Bertuzzi at Capturing Christianity. But that response that I know, if I don't mention it, is going to come up in the comments section, and will anyway, probably, is irrelevant, because the point we're making is not about the strength of the claim. We're pointing out that you already believe certain things, no matter how mundane you think they are.
And you already accept ways of knowing beyond science.
Right.
That's the point.
Right. So the science thing, kind of falls all over itself, in my opinion. So let's see what else we have. Okay, let's see what else we have. So the Pixie Theist Parade, as I'm now calling it. That is one of the most common responses, specifically to theistic arguments, that I have gotten. I headed it off in my debate that Dillahunty has often said a group of spaceless, timeless, non-material, sufficiently powerful, exceedingly wise pixies are responsible. And as I've now said so many times, you all are probably sick of hearing it, Occam's razor, the principle that says you shouldn't multiply explanatory variables beyond what's necessary to explain a particular phenomenon, would shave away all but one of those pixies, and so you'd be left with a spaceless, timeless, non-material, sufficiently powerful, exceedingly wise mind in the head of a pixie as the best explanation for the beginning of the universe. What you've done is just described God and called God a pixie. So we welcome you to theism, but at church, some people might think it's funny that you're calling God a pixie, but still, welcome to the fellowship, my brothers and sisters, you pixie theists. But since that debate, I have been I already knew about the computer. People have done that same thing with a computer. So I was familiar with that. So we got pixie theists, computer theists. But then now I've heard of ham and cheese sandwich theism. I've heard of the God-eating frog theists.
Well,
So I'm calling it the Pixie Parade.
the ham and cheese sandwich theist.
Yeah. Or for short, the sandwich theist. But there could be various denominations of ham and cheese sandwich theism.
I mean,
there
you do
could
have
be,
a flying spaghetti monster.
You could have the club sandwich theist. You could have the whatever. You could have
the flying spaghetti monster has been around.
flying spaghetti.
So the ham,
but just within sandwiches,
Yeah.
you could have divisions.
See, I'm wondering if there's
Sloppy
like a
Joe
parallelomania here going with the ham and cheese sandwich and with the food theme with the flying
Yeah,
spaghetti
the
monster.
ham and cheese sandwich is so similar to the club sandwich theist
And
that
the
they just
flying
borrowed
spaghetti,
from
yeah.
the previous.
Right, and it's all rooted in ripping off the flying spaghetti monster, which it's all got it.
Yeah, that's right.
There will be books written about that.
Oh my gosh, that should be a
3,000
book
years,
title, The Pixie Theist Parade.
Yeah.
And go with that. So I'm calling that phenomenon the Pixie Theist Parade, just so everybody, Drew can keep track of that. Drew McLeod can keep track of that. We're titling that section of the book of Pritchett and Hunter. We're titling that section the Pixie Theist
that will
Parade.
be the great the Trinity Radio Lexicon. That will be a great tabletop picture.
I think it should be
Picture book,
a
yeah.
coffee table book, yeah. Okay, the degree I wanted to say here, the degree to which people presume rights on other people's channels. So some people have noticed that occasionally I'll delete comments. Now, we've talked a little bit about this already, but yes, it's my channel. In an ultimate sense, it's YouTube's channel, but it's YouTube's channel that is youtube.com/Braxton Hunter. It's as much Jonathan's channel as it is mine, okay? But it's our channel, and you're not allowed to come in our house and spew vulgar language around, or as has happened at least once, tell me that I should kill myself very quickly, or listen, if you come into my household, my literal home in Evansville, Indiana, and you start using profanity around my young daughters, who will see our YouTube channel someday, and you start telling their father that he should kill himself, first of all, I think YouTube should ban you because you're a terrible person for doing that. Secondly, I will personally ban you and mute you from the channel.
Yeah.
So people do not have personal rights. There was someone who was whining on an atheist channel, Braxton Hunter. He deletes comments sometimes. And I knew that particular person. It was a person who uses foul language every time they come on my channel. Guess what? Our channel is a family-friendly channel. And so you're not going to come here and use that language. You will get deleted. If you don't, it's because I missed it. But we're looking for stuff like that.
I'm
you don't
still just
own my
shocked that
channel.
your daughters will come. Because I have teenage kids.
Yeah.
And then I have a grown 22-year-old son as well.
And they never watch your channel.
Never. And they watch tons and tons of
Okay,
YouTube.
let's say this. They could watch my channel. And
I'm like, why don't you watch Dad?
wouldn't you like to be able to have a treasure trove of podcast episodes like we have from your father?
Yes, I would.
Because his father's passed away, and you would listen to it probably somewhat regularly just to feel like you're with your dad, right? That could happen with our kids one day. And the last thing I want is someone down in the comments section spewing all this snarky, profane, sexually based often sort of thing. No, sorry, no. You don't have rights to this channel.
Right. Now,
and I do. I have the right to boot you off this channel.
For whatever reason, YouTube has given us that purview, and we're going to exercise it. Now, again, we don't care what you do on your channel. That's not the point. We're not saying, don't be doing that on your. We don't. That's your business. But we're going to handle our business.
Yeah, now transitioning a little bit, one thing I was shocked at is the degree to which these response videos are educational. We're
not going to get to the other topic.
I plan to put some of these in course classrooms in the future because it's one thing, particularly he and I teach a class together on apologetics and mass communication. In fact, it's running right now, I think. And the thing about it is we're teaching people how to do basically what we do is have podcasts, a successful YouTube channel, have debates, preach apologetically based sermons, self-published books, those kind of things. We teach people how to do that. And one of the things that I think is going to be really helpful is putting these response videos to some of the most well-known YouTube atheists in there so they can see how this should be done the right way. And I'm sorry if that sounds self-congratulating, but I think it's helpful. And I've had multiple people Christians tell me, this was so helpful because I don't get this level of detail just listening to a William Lane Craig debate. And William Lane Craig, trust me, could do it much better than me. But the point is, they can listen to this that fills in the blanks that they don't
Yeah,
get.
because what we started doing with like the Weimar series is we were doing what the Reasonable Faith podcast does. Kevin will sit down with William Lane Craig and talk about something that somebody said and then offer responses. And that's kind of what we were doing. Because
we were only dealing with what they said.
I will be shocked to see the Reasonable Faith podcast where William Lane Craig is in the corner on the webcam, and
that'd be awesome. Man, I'd love that.
It would be fascinating, but it's never going to.
But somebody's got to do it, and this person actually enjoys doing it. So, all right. So there's that. The positive response from the apologetics community somewhat surprised me, because we've had this show for years now, and occasionally someone would mention us or talk about us. But I've been shocked by the embrace I've received from people like Mike Winger, who's shared the response videos and probably is responsible for a lot of the views. Also capturing Christianity, Cameron Bertuzzi.
People with exponentially more subscribers than we have.
Yeah, JMD Apologetics 101. Mark Lambert is someone who doesn't. I don't know that he has the number of subscribers. I haven't looked, but he's been so helpful in sharing our stuff around and cluing in other apologists that, hey, these guys mentioned you, and so thank you very much. That I've just been. And there is a real camaraderie among the YouTube apologetics community that I don't even know if exists in the YouTube theology community. I just there's a real let's work together. Let's talk about who needs to be responded to, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was good. That surprised me.
I think the theological arena is a different thing than apologetics.
Yeah. So also the importance of dialoguing with skeptics/atheists privately. I said this before we started doing this, and it has proven to be true. And this is my advice to people out there, and I've said it more than once on this show, is occasionally you're just going to get snarky comments that are drive-by atheist comments, and respond to them on the channel. Or someone says something that actually could be damaging to someone who doesn't know the answer to that question, and you respond on the channel. But when you have someone that seems somewhat open, but they are challenging you, sometimes the best thing to do is talk to them privately on Twitter, through direct message or Facebook private message or something, because I've said this many times, and this is so valuable, is once those people start arguing with you publicly where people can see what they're saying, they then have skin in the game, and everyone, myself included, we all have this ego, this sense of pride that can prevent us from changing our mind, because now we know, well, I've already said X, Y, and Z, and it's already out there. Now I'm dug in, And if you do it through private message or direct message, you get a certain, more of a sense of openness and honesty. It's kind of like, being rude to someone in the car in the other car when you're in traffic, that you would never if you were standing in an elevator right next to them, So I encourage people to sometimes judge when it's right, under the leadership of the Holy Spirit, when it's right to have private conversations versus the public YouTube stuff. And I probably can grow in that area. Okay, so yeah. So that's what I've learned and what we've learned from doing these response videos to skeptics and atheists. Now,
and others.
There's another side to this, and that is we have always been pretty clear when it comes to apologetic methodology that we were on what is typically referred to somewhat obliquely as the evidentialist side of the spectrum for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm a classical apologist. That's a quote-unquote evidentialist way of doing apologetics. Mm-hmm. But there is this other brand that is called presuppositionalism. And people have gotten the impression, I think partly because they've heard us say critical things about some of the people that use presuppositionalism, that we are against presuppositionalism.
Well, if they've been following this show for any amount of time, I have pointed out that I am far more, I find it far more palatable than you do as a method for more regular usage. I actually see benefits. Now, I think over time you have different. I guess it depends on the day with you. Is that what?
No, before you ever came to Trinity, I taught a class already, Apologetics 101,
right.
or Apologetics 1, in which I laid out all the methodologies and the pros and cons to each. And there are pros and cons to each. I think there are fewer cons to the classical approach than any other.
Yeah.
And you know how I make up for that? I'm open to using any approach.
Right.
So, and in fact, in my book, Evangelistic Apologetics, I argue for the use of for an entire chapter. I think I argue for the use of presuppositionalism in certain respects. So
Yeah.
I've always
said that for me.
Yeah.
I've said, man, and I told Eric Hernandez this as well, because I know that he likes to poo-poo presuppositionalism, and I'm like, man, there's really, in the methodology, there are some good things that you don't need to, and I know that he knows that, but you don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. That's why I'm always careful, at least once, and I'm not gonna sit there and make disclaimers forever, but at least once I want to make the distinction between presuppositionalism as a method and presuppositionalists as apologists who are doing it. And I don't just mean famous people, which is what I think most people hear. You also see street level presuppositionalists.
Yeah.
There's good ones like, I would say, Thomas Linton or Dylan Manley, but there's also a whole host.
No, Dylan Simmons.
Yeah, Dylan Simmons, yeah.
Dylan Manley is a Calvinist who is a classicalist.
Oh, okay. Well, I meant to say Dylan Simmons. A lot of Dylans in our world.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's important. There's a reason why these guys like Craig Blomberg and others write books about the reliability of the New Testament and so forth. Because people are even go back to K.A. Kitchens, the reliability of the Old Testament, familiarize yourself with those issues so that you can give an answer. But if your only answer is, well, it's what I say it is, and you can't sit in judgment over it, and who are you to answer back to my opinions? If that's all you do, that is lazy, because you're not doing the work of an apologist to give an answer. You're just giving a retort.
Right. So, for example, recently I was conversing with a friend, and I think I could say colleague, Eli Ayala.
Great
who's
guy.
a Calvinist presuppositionalist. And I was on his podcast. Now, we didn't discuss this on his podcast, but I was on his podcast. But we were talking on the phone the other day, and I said to him, I said, I want to be fair. I said, so let's imagine this, because, we understand that the use of evidences is not opposed to presuppositionalism, and that presuppositionalism, rightly understood, can involve the use of evidences like the ones that would be used in classical apologetics, the theistic arguments, the resurrection case, these kind of things.
Yeah, or
now,
the moral argument itself is a transcendental argument.
Right, and they will not want you to call that. You will not. They will. My understanding is they will have a problem with you saying, "Oh, you're using evidentialist stuff," because they have a philosophical problem with evidentialism. So you can just say the use of the provision of evidences, and yeah, they do that. So I was asking Eli, and I hope he's okay with me my saying this, but I said, "What if I said, okay, we're in a coffee shop, you and I, and someone overhears, an atheist overhears our discussion and sits down and says, 'Hey, I don't see any good reason to believe in the Christian God.'" And so I say, well, okay, well, let me give you some good reasons why I believe in God, and I give a theistic argument, like the cosmological argument, and then I say, and let me give you some resurrection case and all that, and we talk to this guy, and because this is a real person and not someone out there facelessly on the internet, this person responds, well, and we have a good dialogue, and it seems like some seeds were planted, and of course we present the gospel and that he needs to repent and trust Jesus and all of those things that are important. So I said, now when we get in the car and we're driving away, what are you going to say to me about that approach that you just saw me give? How are you going to, okay, that was great, but now we're alone and I'm going to tell you where my criticism lies. And he said, I wouldn't really have a criticism with that. The problem is more the underlying philosophy of the approach, that we have to know intuitively the nature of the unregenerate person, the importance of what's going on in terms of the Holy Spirit, and all these kind of things. And so I said, and so what I'm saying to you all now is that sort of presuppositionalism, is fine.
Actually, it's what we believe already.
Right.
We believe, contrary to the opinion that non-Calvinists don't believe this, we believe that in order for conversion to occur, there is work of the Holy Spirit involved in that prior. We're just not determinists.
Yeah.
Period. But we believe in the necessity of the Holy Spirit to bring about conviction. We believe...
And a convention if he wants to.
Yeah. And we believe that the sinner is suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. And what does that look like? What that looks like to me, because I affirm the radical sinfulness of man. I don't know if your mileage may vary, but I affirm that. And what that looks like when you talk to skeptics is, I understand the radical depravity of the person to whom I am speaking that is an unbeliever, that they are already sitting in judgment over the Bible. They're sitting in judgment over Jesus because he didn't tell us to be vegans and he didn't tell us to fight climate change and affirm gay marriage. They don't like God because of slavery, rape, and genocide in the Old Testament, etc., etc. That's what suppressing the truth and unrighteousness actually looks like in the person. So they're already sitting in judgment over the evidence. So if they're attacking that, what you need to do is you use our arguments to show that their arguments don't hold any water.
And the Holy Spirit can use that.
Right. That
and we're not opposed to the tag argument. We're not opposed to challenging their presuppositions. We're not opposed to saying that they're borrowing from our capital.
Right. The Bible is defensible. I know. I just defend a line. We've all heard that before. But no, the Bible is reliable. It is defendable as reliable historical documents. It is also way more than that, and nobody who is not a presuppositionalist denies that. But the point is we're giving answers to direct challenges to the Bible, which I think Christian apologists should do. If you have hope within you and you're basing it on everything that you've learned from that book, you ought to be able to answer challenges against that book.
So what we like...
That's what you meant by lazy.
If you're only going to focus on the presuppositional method that... without learning some of these evidences to help with that presuppositional method.
Yeah. Now, so to make the distinction between, we all share the same presuppositions as far as, generally speaking, the sinner is suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, and that the work of the Holy Spirit is necessary.
Those are our presuppositions.
Right. Theologically, we may shake that out different. Between different soteriological views. But that's inside baseball. But those are presuppositions that William Lane Craig understands.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. But he also.
But there's a difference between presuppositions that we all have as Christians, and presuppositions in your methodology.
Right. And this is where I want to get to highlight three things that I think the methodology of presupposition. We've gone on enough of what we think is bad about it, and even in this episode and in a previous episode where we were responding to a presuppositionalist. But I want to highlight three things where I think that it's really actually useful. Okay, and the first one I want to say where it's useful is when you're engaging with either in a formal debate or on street evangelism or whatever, you can demonstrate where, depending on their worldview, if they're Mormons, say they're polytheistic, or if they are an atheist or an agnostic or a skeptic and they don't believe that any gods exist, you can demonstrate how their worldview borrows capital from the Christian worldview. Not just the theist worldview, but from the Christian worldview and where those are rooted. And it is very useful for that, for demonstrating
I've done it.
A great example of this, this kind of is when anyone says anything about reason and logic, and then you ask how matter is rational. You ask how matter
gives you the laws of logic.
Gives you the laws of logic. Right? Where does Bonson does this great in his one debate that you can find. Who did he?
Gordon Stein.
That debate, I mean, he kept going back to abstract objects.
One of the most famous debates among...
Right. Yeah. And I love it. It's a great... I'm a big Greg Bonson fan. I'm not a theonomist. I don't buy into that. But generally, I like Greg Bonson a lot. And I think that if people could be more like him...
So borrowed capital...
is a very... Demonstrate where they're actually stealing from you to make their points.
Yeah, it's climbing up into the father's lap to slap his face.
Right. So that is one way that it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Demonstrate. The second area would be demonstrating that they have no ontological grounding or foundation for the claims that they're making.
Lack of foundation.
Mm-hmm. So again, even with reason and logic, or as David Wood will even point out, science, that's our thing. Or how do you...
It presumes a rational cosmos.
Right, it presumes a rational cosmos, an intelligent mind that's behind the design that you keep saying is there, but it's not really there, it's funny, I was pointing out we were watching an atheist video, and he kept saying, created.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
Yeah, created presumes a creator.
Right. And so, well, that's... not just moral capital, but showing that you don't have like a foundation for reason and logic, like intelligibility at all, or biological life.
Yeah.
Which they'll say, oh, well, you're just making a god of the gaps there or whatever else. But intelligibility of the cosmos and intelligibility of us that somehow separates us from every other creature that evolved or whatever. What's your basis for that? What is your ontological foundation for this objective morality that you keep, because like we mentioned, there are atheists who are trying to find an objective standard for morality that's not God. And William Lane Craig completely exposes that this is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
And the skeptics' only reply is, well, we'll just need to wait for more data.
So what's the third thing?
The third thing is demonstrating the incoherence of opposite worldviews. And you want to see a classical apologist use presuppositional methodology. We're talking about not the presuppositions that but incorporating it to demonstrate the incoherence of an opposite worldview. Is the Alex Rosenberg debate, where he takes a single premise from Alex Rosenberg to form his arguments to refute Rosenberg's thing. And I think he put together like 8 of them, about to demonstrate the folly of naturalism, right? Yeah. And it was like one after another at its peak. That was just a devastating, thorough,
and if you're new,
resounding defeat of Rosenberg using a methodological way that's kind of built into the methodology of presuppositionalism.
Yeah, and someone just asked recently on Facebook, I'm new to apologetics and I'm enamored with the sort of argumentation that William Lane Craig uses. What Craig stuff should I look to? Well, there's a lot out there, but that Rosenberg debate is a different sort of a thing. Yeah. So 90% of what Craig's debates are going to be very similar, but that's very different, so you might enjoy that.
We outlined 3 reasons. Go look into it more. Of why that methodology is a useful method to have in your toolkit when you're doing evangelism. So don't destroy presuppositionalism's reputation by being a terrible presuppositionalist. And a good example of that, of just assertion after assertion after assertion after assertion, making a bunch of claims that you don't even support, and making a bunch of disparaging remarks about your opponent that you don't even support. A good thing of that would be like Sonny Hernandez against Dan Barker. I thought that debate was...
I don't remember.
Yeah, it just wasn't...
I watched it, but I don't remember.
It wasn't the best showing for presuppositionalism. And so that's kind of where our critique lies, is use the best of all of it. Like you said earlier, they all have problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the best of classical, and that be my thing, and then in my tool belt, I'll have all of these other things to shore up the shortcomings.
Yeah. Yeah,
that seems to be the most reasonable way to do apologetics. Everyone should be toolkit apologists.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So we're now discovering on the screen what you knew when you clicked the video, which is that we did not do a short video. we have gone like an hour and 13 minutes or something, but we hope that it's been beneficial to you. And if you are an atheist listening and have made it to the end through all this presuppositionalism talk, that you may not be interested in hearing us talk about.
I don't know. It seems like the atheists agree with the presuppositionalists.
Yeah, well, that's another show. Yeah. But here's the thing. If you have made it this far, here's what you ultimately need to know that my presuppositionalist brothers and sisters will agree with me about if they're a Christian in any sense, which is that God loves you and you need to repent, and that means to turn from your life without Jesus to a life with Jesus. Trust Him for your salvation, and begin living the Christian life.
Amen.
Now you say, but I'm not 100%. I don't have Cartesian certainty about all of this. You know what? That is a fool's errand to try and seek Cartesian certainty about anything before you trust it. The fact is, there is good reason to believe. I think outweighing reason to believe that Christian theism is true. And here's the thing. I'll say what William Lane Craig always says. If you do want to know, if you want to experience it for yourself, then even if you say you came from an evangelical household and you were delivered from all of that and you never felt anything or sensed anything or whatever, listen, start again. Become a Christian today, and you can know the God of all creation in your own life. You may not always get the feels like you want to, but I believe through seeing the answered prayers in your lives, what it does for you in terms of everyday living, and everything else, you're going to see that there is fruit in this. And so we encourage you to do that. If you want to know how to do that in more detail, or you don't really know where to begin in your Christian walk, then feel free to contact us. We're available on Facebook. We're available on Twitter. Just contact us and say, that's me. I want to talk. You don't have to do it publicly. You can do it privately. We're not going to pressure you. We're not going to share what you've said publicly unless you tell us we can. So we want that to be out there for you. And so check out our sister programs, Leighton Flowers Soteriology 101, the Bible Bro Down with Billy Wendelin and Matt Chisholm, and Steve Gregg's The Narrow Path. In fact, I think Steve Gregg may have been calling me during this episode.
Yeah.
So
and we have new shows on the way for the Trinity Commission. And by
we
the
keep
way,
saying that. Are we ever?
Yeah, they're coming.
Okay.
And also, if you would like to support us in what we do, you believe in the mission of Trinity Radio and our evangelistic efforts, click somewhere up there and become a patron. Give us $5, give us $10, give us $100. We'll take any of it.
Or visit us if you're listening by audio at patreon.com/Trinity Radio. And we'll see you next time on
Trinity Radio.